April 2002, Arnold Schwarzenegger begins filming T3 Rise of the Machines, the latest installment of Terminator, one of the most successful film franchises of all time. At 55, Arnold is one of the highest paid stars in Hollywood, but his influence on the movies goes beyond the numbers.
He certainly changed the face of the action hero.
Each generation comes along and adds a little more to it.
Smith, Wesson, and me.
Nowadays, people are expecting their heroes to be bigger than life.
But Arnold's also brought bigger than life to real life.
We're gonna go and pump it up. Let's do some push-ups. Watch the governor doing push-ups here. Very good. You're doing very well.
His place is secure as being the father of the new wave of pumpology.
His face has appeared on thousands of magazines published in hundreds of languages worldwide. By sheer force of personality, he brought muscles into the mainstream.
He kind of made it almost glamorous in a sense.
And what's interesting is the culture then changed.
Arnold was the icon. He was the guy who went first.
With the enormity of his fame and fortune, it's easy to forget that it all started with an independent documentary film released in 1977 called Pumping Iron. The film introduced the world to a character every bit as amazing as the Terminator or Conan would turn out to be. That character was Arnold Schwarzenegger himself.
What we were doing is making a story out of bodybuilding, and we had the priceless opportunity of being able to craft a subculture and to really define what it was.
Before Pumping Iron, bodybuilding had a big image problem.
It wasn't taken seriously. Bodybuilding was on the back of comic books.
And there hasn't been such a flexing of biceps since Popeye downed his last can of spinach.
It had kind of a stigma attached to it, that it was guys who were insecure or people that were trying to overcome inferiority complexes in dark dungeons.
In other words, freaks and fools. But in Pumping Iron, director George Butler was able to smash these old stereotypes and replace them with something new to bodybuilding: personalities. Of course, it didn't hurt that his star was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And I remember being a little kid and watching and going, well, that guy has a funny accent, but he sure is big.
To see competition, to see these guys and how these guys play these mind games with each other was fascinating.
I watch you.
I watch you too.
Oh, with the barbell above my head. I'm not nervous at all.
You certainly got a vibe of Arnold's charm, his charisma.
Can you imagine the feeling I have 6 times Mr. Olympia?
Before that, I think that if you had a muscular body, it was that's all you were about, is the muscle, the muscle, the muscle. But after Pumping Iron, you could have character, you could have charisma, you could be funny.
If boxing had Ali, bodybuilding was going to have Arnold. He was controversial.
The pump. It's as satisfying to me as having sex with a woman and coming.
He was charming.
How about that, huh? Can you do that?
And like Ali, he was a natural-born salesman, selling not only bodybuilding, but his own persona.
Do you work out every day, every other day?
I would say 6 days a week.
6 days a week?
Yeah, with weights. And I run 3 times a week and then do other exercises that we shouldn't talk about here in front of the people.
You sly dog.
I do everything.
But Pumping Iron did more than legitimize bodybuilding. It was at the leading edge of the fitness revolution. By the late 70s and early 80s, Americans, inspired at least in part by the muscularity they saw in Pumping Iron, were joining the bodybuilders at the gym.
It became a social circuit for the first time. It became a great place to meet people at the gym. The last place in the world you would ever expect to meet your future missus is at the gym. Never happened, but it did.
The guys are going, oh, yeah, I'll hang around here. This isn't bad. I'll get in shape just so I can hang out here.
But as America was heading into the weight room, Arnold was heading out. Propelled by a wacky idea, he thought he could parlay his bodybuilding into Hollywood stardom.
I like acting very much, so maybe I can have a new career there, who knows.
It was a long shot. The bulging physique that had served him so well in competition had nothing to do with the traditional Hollywood handsome.
This is something else that I want to, because I said, look, he's not going to be, you know, wearing briefs and flexing on The Tonight Show. And he said, I'm not asking him to do that. But the fact is that he is known for the fact that he's got the body that he's got.
In the old days, the audience knew the hero was big and strong because the script said so.
That's the man I'm after.
I remember when I first started acting in the early 50s, not many actors worked out at all.
You know, they did it in a certain way, the way they walked, the way they jumped on a horse, and all those kind of things. They sold how studly they were.
During the 50s and 60s, you could get away with murder. You'd say, okay, Superman had the muscle sewn on.
As Arnold was trying to figure out how to fit into the Hollywood mold, director John Milius was trying to figure out how he could bring the comic book Conan to life by casting a bodybuilder. For Arnold, the timing couldn't have been better.
If we didn't have Arnold, we'd have to build him.
Suddenly, Arnold found himself the star of a big-budget Hollywood movie. But now, the muscles weren't enough. There were acting lessons, riding lessons, swordplay lessons, and diction lessons.
3,333 1/3 the fine wine it grows on the vine.
Sure, he would have doubts about whether he could do things, but he always would have the doubt of somebody climbing a mountain that's halfway up. How are we going to get there? Now, we're going to get there by climbing up.
Conan the Barbarian was a smash hit and put Hollywood on notice. Though you didn't have to be built like a bodybuilding champion, it was definitely time to get in shape.
Arnold comes along, and the bar gets moved from there to there.
We, the movie makers, just try to find clothes, a costume to put on this extraordinary elemental creature, this giant.
I'll be back.
I mean, it really kind of set a standard that said if you're going to try to come off as something on the screen, you know, you got to have the goods, and it's not all about your stunt double.
Shirts came off, and there it was. There was no hiding. There was no like holding the stomach in.
It's a party.
In the 80s, the studios produced a string of action movies all starring muscular heroes. Audiences, weary of the sensitive 70s, ate them up.
We were like the new action heroes of that era. All of us had one thing in common. We showed the physical development.
We love cheering that because we can appreciate, we in our hearts know what it takes to get that.
Man wanted to go to see a movie that had tremendous action, where they could sit back and say, wow, yes, he takes care of the job, and kind of lives through you in a way.
I think they were movies that celebrated men.
I know it certainly inspired me, because here's a guy who's kicking ass and taking names. But the Predator, especially, you know, stepped to the plate and said, just bring it. And it was great, you know, especially at the end, you know, come on, kill me, I'm right here. Kill me, do it.
Come on, kill me, I'm here.
That's fantastic.
Now being strong and muscular was not only okay, it was celebrated. A new generation raised on action movies hit the weights in order to avoid being called girly men.
Where's the Bob? You are.
I think people were being swept away by the films subliminally, and then all of a sudden it just hit.
Hey, Arnold, look at this. Yeah, how about this?
Oh, you guys make me sick. This is what you have to do, like this.
Suddenly, it seemed, everybody was in shape. From a few darkened gyms in the early 70s, an entire multi-billion-dollar industry erupted. Normal, everyday people were signing up in droves to tighten, tone, shape, and sculpt at fitness palaces filled with gleaming chrome muscle-making machines.
Bodybuilding and physicality became kind of like a hip thing. It's okay to be proud of your body.
And even people who didn't necessarily want to be as big as Arnold Schwarzenegger, who didn't have any aspirations of becoming Mr. Olympia, but just had aspirations after seeing him about getting in the gym and saying, you know what, I just want to get in shape.
And it's not only men pumping up. In movies, muscular female stars are now in on the action. In the fashion world, magazine ads sell pecs and abs as much as they do underwear. Rock icons have gone rock hard, hiring trainers to turn them lean and mean. In sports, athletes who have been told for decades to avoid getting muscle-bound have learned better, because big means strong, and strong is good. So boxers are now trained by bodybuilders, as are athletes in tennis, basketball, even golf. Professional Olympic teams hire strength coaches to build brawn, but it's not only athletes. Remember when the elderly thought lifting anything heavy would cause a heart attack? No more. Study after study shows that strength training can improve cardiovascular fitness, strengthen bones, increase flexibility and balance, even fight diabetes, arthritis, and depression.
Millions of people are involved in exercise programs that involve strength training, aerobic exercise, high-protein diets are the craze. Arnold was doing that back in the 70s and the 60s.
Bodybuilding, once a subculture of maniacs, is now so much a part of our culture, it's hard to even remember when we thought lifting weights was weird.
He made it very, socially acceptable. And, pumping iron certainly was the pivotal moment in the history of that.
I had no idea that it would catch on the way it did. So that was a total surprise. I wish I could say, I knew all along, but that's not really what really happened. I still look back today when I talk about it like right now and reflect. I say to myself, how did it happen? I mean, how could that become a reality?
Coming up next, the film that launched the movie career of Arnold Schwarzenegger and helped jumpstart the fitness revolution. Pumping Iron. And stay tuned after the movie for an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the making of Pumping Iron, including never-before-seen outtakes from the film and current interviews with the cast and crew.
About the time when I first saw it, I was like mortified, saying, oh my God.
He is absolutely acute at being able to figure out an individual's absolute weakness and then put a sword through it.
Maybe I went a little overboard.
And now the documentary that started it all, remixed and remastered, Pumping Iron. Long before the phrase pumping iron became part of our everyday fitness vocabulary, it was the title of a low-budget documentary that would defy the odds to become a cult classic. On the 25th anniversary of that film, Cinemax presents the story behind the making of Pumping Iron, the film that introduced the world to a charismatic 28-year-old bodybuilding champion known as Arnold. With never-before-seen outtakes from the film,
the only thing that's left is Arnold's bullshit.
as well as candid comments from the cast and crew, 25 years after the film was released.
About the time when I first saw it, I was like mortified, saying, oh my God.
I went overboard many times.
We were really struggling to get the movie made, and people were laughing at us.
Cinemax presents a tale of sweat, muscle, ego, and glory in the golden age of bodybuilding. Raw Iron, the making of pumping iron. February, Columbus, Ohio. Arnold Schwarzenegger is in town for the Arnold Classic, the annual bodybuilding competition he's produced since 1976. Along with Mr. Olympia, it's the premier contest in the sport. Bodybuilding has come a long way since Pumping Iron was released in 1977. The contestants are bigger than ever, and so is the stage show. The Arnold Classic is an extravaganza to rival any big-ticket rock concert. And bodybuilding's become big-ticket too. These days, more than 175,000 bodybuilders compete in 169 countries. Today, Schwarzenegger is here to hand out more than $400,000 in prizes. But he's also here to see some old friends who have gathered backstage. Many of the original bodybuilders from the Pumping Iron era. Bill Grant, Ed Corney, Mike Katz, Franco Columbu, and Lou Ferrigno.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Terrific.
There was camaraderie. We helped each other. We trained each other. We were a part of a family.
Where's your son? Where's Michael?
Right there. Michael, come over here.
Good.
Michael. How's it going? Okay, good to see you. 25 years ago, we saw in Pumping Iron, we saw the little Michael. He was 3 years old. And then he made you pose. Remember, he made you hit shots.
Ooh, it's hard. Feel this muscle, how hard that is.
Just everyone is so huge. What's going on here? I'm the...
Still got it. 25 years
Can you believe
later.
that?
Pumping Iron. It changed my whole life.
Are you going to give him all the wrong advice?
It's not that hard for me to give him the wrong advices.
No, only the right advice. It was so much fun and enthusiasm.
Great. Oh.
It was incredible.
Let me tell you, she said, now she's his mother talking about my mother. He's talking about pumping up.
He's talking about pumping up. He's talking about psyching me out. You couldn't shut me up then. You can shut me up now. It's always the same. Nothing has changed.
Whenever I think back on the Pumping Iron days in the 1975 when we did this movie, I definitely miss it.
Back before Pumping Iron, he was known as the Austrian Oak, but he was unknown outside the marginal and misunderstood sport called competitive bodybuilding.
It was a tiny little world, and 300 people would come to the contest that night. They would go crazy over Arnold Schwarzenegger, so he was king of 300 people. It's just that Arnold hadn't burst out of that world yet.
Photographer George Butler and writer Charles Gaines were fascinated with the bodybuilding subculture and collaborated on a book they called Pumping Iron, which featured the young Austrian bodybuilder. Butler wanted to turn it into a film, but Arnold wanted to retire. Since moving to America in 1968, he'd won the sport's top prize, Mr. Olympia, an unprecedented 5 times, and he'd had enough.
George Butler came to me and says, I have a great idea. We should do a movie, but it only will work if you're in it. And if you retire now, you can't be in it, so that doesn't work.
Butler knew the weird and wacky world of bodybuilding had all the makings of a fascinating movie, but how to get investors aboard, it would be a tough sell. It was, after all, the 70s, the height of the counterculture revolution. The last thing on anyone's mind was muscle men.
It gave me a very formidable obstacle to overcome, which is to say, how do I make Arnold Schwarzenegger fashionable in the era in which the most celebrated model in the world was Twiggy? In the back of my mind, I knew that throughout history, there had always been at least one worldwide bodybuilder Sandow at the turn of the century was one of the highest paid entertainers in the world. Charles Atlas in the 20s and 30s. Steve Reeves in the 50s made a fortune in the movies.
After convincing Arnold to compete for one more Mr. Olympia title, first-time director Butler jumped headfirst into filmmaking.
Take it. You got the 8? 8. Head slate.
Just talk to these two guys here.
The concept was simple. Shoot the intense training leading up to the Mr. Olympia, then shoot the competition itself. Just let the story unfold in front of the camera. He started by shooting a test film for investors. In this never-before-seen footage, the first frames ever shot for Pumping Iron, Arnold pumps up backstage for a posing exhibition.
When Nixon gets impeached. It's just too much pressure, you know. I mean, I'm competing now for 10 years, and after 10 years I feel like it's enough, you know. You have to let other people have a chance, and just leave as a winner.
Yeah. Suppose Louis beats you.
He doesn't. There's no such thing. For years now, since 1970, I was like unbeatable. And there was no hope for anyone to come close. It just didn't exist because I knew once I have the title, there's no way anyone is going to take it.
But if an Arnold win was inevitable, where was the drama? Where was the conflict? Every movie hero has to show his stuff by pushing up against an obstacle. Butler had to find it.
I wanted to find a great antagonist for Arnold, and there was Louis Ferrigno in Brooklyn, New York, 6'8", 270, dark and foreboding.
Muscle magazine publisher Joe Weider had already had his eye on Ferrigno. For Weider, the old story Arnold wins again was growing stale. But a Mr. Olympia showdown between Lou and Arnold, this was perfect. And exactly the kind of rivalry that sells magazines.
He won the Mr. Universe contest in 1974 in Italy. Weider came back, I remember, like it was like a fresh breath of air. With a new champion on the horizon.
Well, I had to stimulate them. And when I go into the gym and I saw him pick up 500 pounds, he says, "What do you think, Joe?" I say, "Oh, not bad. You can do better than that." He got mad.
So he will create this whole thing, and you know, and I think it was really good because the fans loved all that, and that's exactly what I played up then in the movie Pumping Iron.
In this outtake from Pumping Iron, Weider and Schwarzenegger discussed the very real possibility that the champ might actually lose to the larger and hungrier Ferrigno.
You were the one who saw Lou in New York just a few days ago, so how does he look?
He looks very, very massive.
Well, he was my idol, part of me getting into bodybuilding. Of course, when you have an idol like Arnold, you want to beat your idol to be the best.
Wait till they see these dogs in Africa. Terrific. Big enough to eat.
Butler had his antagonist.
Since 1969, nobody has beaten me, so why should he come around now all of a sudden and break my record?
I don't know, he's training real hard. He's
Well, you
heavy
will
and
see.
He's massive and he's built almost like you.
No.
What happens if you are defeated?
To enhance the drama, the filmmakers had to pump up the conflict.
This is for the big baby, Louis.
This is where documentary filmmaking is so effective, because you can do something with real people that a novelist just couldn't imagine.
You create dialogue and hostility towards one another in order to make the movie more interesting. If it is just a sport, that you can see for 10 minutes and then you have seen it all. But if you see the personalities and you can follow them.
A showdown was set. The Golden King versus the Dark Prince.
Well, I was a bit of an outsider at that time in that world because I was the only one back training in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn versus Venice, California, a bizarre beach town, a refuge for artists and hippies, weirdos and wackos. In its own strange way, bodybuilding fit right in. If the sport had an epicenter, it was a legendary Gold's Gym. which is where the filmmakers began shooting.
Come on, Franco. What is this bullshit? Yeah. No, side chest, not front chest, Franco, side. Yeah, these things change a little bit when we go to the side. Hey, look, Franco, what you have to do is when I say side chest, then hit the side chest and then it come out. And if you don't have it, don't hit it. No, don't hit it. Don't hit it.
We had camaraderie that was incredible. We'd train together. We'd go to the Gold's Gym at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's where everybody would meet. And I mean, the energy that came out of that little gym, it was only about 5,000 square feet. It could probably light up the city of Los Angeles.
It's the mecca of bodybuilding.
When I got out of here, there was only this little bitty gym sitting out here close to the beach. I mean, it wasn't much bigger than the YMCA where I'm from.
It was like a house. And it was only basic weight.
That's the only place we knew. That was home to us.
The public at that point didn't accept what we were doing. They didn't understand what we were doing. That was one of the joys of doing Pumping Iron, that people could really see that we just weren't big, huge people with muscles.
We were all kind of tied together like this. We worked out together, we ate together, we were partying together.
Rent was cheap. By day, they trained at Gold's or on nearby Muscle Beach, and at night, they let off steam, often at Arnold's bachelor pad in Santa Monica.
The main man is here, guys.
The cameras never stop rolling.
Mr. Universe 1975. Cheers to the Mr. World. Robbie Robertson. Hey, wait a minute. Let him hit a double shot, a double bicep shot for this lady here. Hit it quickly. Hit a double bicep shot. Come on now. Come on now. Hit 3 shots. All right. All right. Okay, where's the champagne?
Okay, the era from like 1970 to 1980 was probably the most fun I ever had in my life.
So we had this unformed subject, and everyone was very eager to make something out of it.
These fellows that did the film, Butler and Gaines, they had become part of our family. We trusted them.
Day after day, shooting scene after scene, Butler and co-director Robert Fiore were looking for their movie, material that would make the cut. They found that even watching this huge crowd order their huge lunch turned into an event.
We went to a restaurant where all the ordinary people were sitting, which we called the ordinary folks. And we were sitting there on the table and people were just looking over kind of like, who are these guys? Oh my God.
Big steak. Scrambled eggs.
6 eggs over each.
The big steak, and I want a tuna omelet.
And a tuna omelet?
Yeah.
Oh, look what he's eating. He's eating 3 hamburgers in one shot. Oh, God, well, who are these gladiators? I mean, they couldn't figure it out who we were, you know? And we loved that kind of a scene, you know, to shock people.
The filmmakers often set up situations to see what would happen.
So a lot of different chances were tried.
They turned Schwarzenegger and Mike Katz loose in an amusement park.
Hey, they made a statue of Mike. That is a good one, Mike.
They filmed Arnold with his acupuncturist.
What does it mean?
We're stimulating a muscle.
Okay, good night.
Watched him get a haircut.
Ask Arnold what sort of clothing he competes.
What kind of clothing do you wear in competition?
Little tiny posing trunks.
Do you have to talk at all?
No. Except if you're the winner. So I talk a lot.
Yeah.
They were shooting, even overshooting, always looking for material to reveal Arnold's motives, his character, and what seemed at the time to be insanely ambitious dreams.
I won the world championships so many times now that I would like to go on, you know, try to be the best in something else.
Like what?
I would like to get into acting.
So there was a tremendous struggle to make this movie really work and to make it really interesting, not only for the bodybuilding crowd, but for the general population.
To do that, and to give the film some Hollywood sizzle, Butler approached Bud Cort, the hot young star of MASH, Brewster McCloud, and Harold and Maude.
I've never seen so many huge people in my life. That's why I joined a gym. I want to get my blood moving, you know?
Yeah.
All I do is drive and scream at my agent, you know? So I figured I'd, you know, get my blood moving.
The idea was to send Bud to muscle masterclass with Arnold.
Am I supposed to breathe before I stand up, during, or after? I know this thing. I hate it. Oh, I crack my neck. And when do I breathe in? Breathe out when? When do I breathe? In, out, right.
He was very funny, and he happened to love bodybuilding.
Just start thinking about that it's a beautiful exercise and that it makes your legs grow. And
Yeah,
maybe
I do all that psychological shit, but it doesn't work with me. I get pain in my leg.
But after screening all his footage, Bud felt his scenes were too distracting from the main storyline.
I think this whole thing is fucked.
I think so too. I gotta tell you.
Bud pulled out, asking the filmmakers to put the rest of his salary back into the project so they could finish.
And I always teased him. I said, one day I'm going to take all of this footage that we shot and put it back into the movie. Now finally people are going to see it.
Let me show you another exercise.
Okay.
We did a scene up what we call the Muscle Rock, where we went up in the Malibu canyons and up to the top of the mountain there, where they had the best kind of lighting for taking photographs. So we brought the whole camera team up there.
In this outtake, Arnold and his buddies work on posing routines for the upcoming contest in South Africa.
If Lou hits this one, I fall up
with this one. We can't go into that one?
instantly with this one.
Louis don't follow that one?
He could, but you know, Arnold has done
this one.
You know what I mean? Okay.
Almost nothing made it into the movies, but it was really a fantastic, I think, sequence. Just to show again that we were all friends.
Good. Not bad. Nobody will look at the legs.
And the reason why it didn't really work was because when we edited the movie, we wanted to show some kind of a competition.
The movie was Arnold, and it was critical to get to the heart of it.
And the heart of it was the competition for the heavyweight crown and the conflict with Lou Ferrigno.
Veronica, you're gonna wipe him out!
And if he's in shape, fine. I hope he is.
The filmmakers moved on to New York. In contrast to the fun and games of Gold's Gym, the Brooklyn setting was a dungeon.
We filmed Louis in a dark sort of underground gym in Brooklyn, and then we'd immediately cut to Arnold Schwarzenegger. There were skylights overhead. Venice Beach was right outside the gym, the palm trees swinging to and fro.
And in contrast to the sunny optimism of Arnold and his friends, Lou was as serious as a heart attack.
Come on!
Here I am in New York wearing sweat clothes. I got everybody around me in the gym that 1/3 of my size, people not looking like bodybuilders. You could see this one scene I'm walking in and one guy doing a dumbbell curl. Yeah, we got 10 right here. And it's hard to stay motivated. The only way I can motivate myself is just keep screaming Arnold's name in the gym and just keep pumping that heavy iron. Arnold! Arnold! I was saying Arnold, Arnold. Arnold! I really wanted to beat Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Hey! That's it.
In Ferrigno, Butler found not just an antagonist, but a character rich with vulnerabilities. Partially deaf and overshadowed by a domineering father, Lou had everything to lose. What Butler invented was Matty Ferrigno's actual involvement in his son's bodybuilding career.
Push it, man! Come on, come on!
See, my father never really was really involved in bodybuilding. And they asked him to be in the film. They thought it would be good to have father and son.
In the movie, Matty Ferrigno is a stage father to the best of intentions. And Matty had a very clear idea of what Louis should be doing. It would just unroll in front of my eyes.
When you step out there, boy, remember all those grueling nights and mornings in the gym. And this is it. This is the reward, and we want it.
He kept putting in my head, this is your last chance. There's one scene you see me curling dumbbells. 100-pound dumbbell.
Show them! Sing it out! Come on! Show them and I gotta do more!
Afterwards, my father goes, boy, what a workout.
Oh, boy, what a workout.
That's nice.
Because he was holding one of the dumbbells. He's the one who's tired.
You remind me of what you're gonna show them. And then you go, boom, like you're saying, take a look at this hunk of man. Something like that, okay? You try now.
And he did the best he could. The fact, because at the time I had a speech problem and everything, I was not able to conduct myself in interviews. He tried to be my voice.
The unfolding relationship between father and son added an unexpected layer of tension and emotional richness to the film. As Matty demonized Arnold, he wore his son down.
There's only one thing in mind, and that's to beat that German. We gotta beat Arnold. He's been up there too long. You waited 9 years for this shot, right? Be careful. He's gonna try every trick. If he sees you look a little better, he's gonna try and do something. He's gonna try to make you look bad out there. Watch every move he makes. Try not to engage in conversation with him.
And most of the time I really wanted to say, let me speak for myself. Let me be who I am, please. You know, this is not how I want to conduct myself. This is not how I want to be in the film.
Look out. That's right. That's it. No. Down here, Louis.
I was not really me. I was beaten down.
Pumping up, pumping iron.
As Butler filmed and shaped his material, blending fact with fiction, the characters emerged as types, heightened versions of themselves. The self-invented, charismatic winner and the self-conscious, desperate underdog. Butler also honed his secondary characters, the bully, the family man, the master poser. Arnold's friend Franco Columbu was not so easily defined. So in 1975, the crew traveled to his tiny homeland in Sardinia to see what might happen. Not much did, except one of the more memorable moments of the film.
My town is 2,000 people when they're all in town. And of a sudden, the crew comes there to film my parents and little things I did in the town. And there was nothing to do in the town. I could only walk and lift a car. And that's what I did. I could think, I said, what could I do for the camera? Lift a car. My father was watching. Say, that's my son, he lifts cars, you know?
Another memorable moment was the infamous T-shirt incident, when Ken Waller, in an attempt to fluster his opponent Mike Katz, hides his T-shirt.
You see a blue T-shirt around?
In reality, the filmmakers made it more than it was.
The thing about my part of it, like, you have to have a good guy and a bad guy to make something to the movie.
Hey, you know what I'm gonna do when I get to Africa? I'm gonna take Katz's shirt, I'm gonna hide it.
I hid the T-shirt, yeah.
We knew that Waller had taken Katz's T-shirt, and we did follow that up.
You know, back then, that sort of was my nature in a way, but it was all in joking. I considered Mike a friend. A friend of yours, you really don't want to hurt their feelings. At that time, I didn't ever think it was going to come out and be a big deal on a movie screen. So you learn later. I would go to contests after that, and I'd get booed because of what was said in that movie.
And then there was Schwarzenegger himself. While already supremely confident, he made it a point to pump up his persona while the cameras were rolling.
I played the kind of Germanic machine that comes over from over there, like a machine, nothing will stop him.
I have to cut my emotions off and be kind of cold.
No emotions, no feelings.
I want to be the best, and I'm perfectly willing to go through anything to be the best.
Anything to psych out his opponents, trying to chip away at their confidence, laughing all the while.
I'm not nervous at all.
I tried anything and everything to sometimes look like, this evil guy. Franco is pretty smart, but Franco is a child.
For me, it was like, I don't care. It was like, it doesn't matter what he says. When I'm on stage, I'm going to show that I'm the best. And I'm still convinced I was at least as good as Arnold on the stage that night of the Olympia, or maybe a little bit better. It doesn't matter if he wins or I win.
To be honest with you, he was cocky.
To be perfect, it's one of the hardest things to be, you know?
He had a right to be.
Of course you were competitive. Of course, when it came down to the pose-off, and when it came down to who brings the best body in on the day of the competition, yeah, I was the most competitive. But now, since I'm wiser and older, I've thought about many times if, like, you know, maybe I went a little overboard. But, you know, that's the way I did it then. That was my thinking process then, and, you know, you can't go back and change it. But sometimes I regret it.
In an attempt to soften the edges around Arnold Schwarzenegger, Charles Gaines, the author of the Pumping Iron book, came around to draw Arnold out, get him to warm up emotionally, reveal vulnerability. It didn't work, and it never made the cut.
Scared? Do you ever get scared?
Sure, I get scared.
Of what? What scares you?
The unknown.
He felt like he couldn't get through to me because here I was this kind of one-dimensional guy that was just like made of steel.
Of course they want you to be all wide open. They want to be able to do that you are soft, that you're able to cry, because it puts them in the same boat and they say, well, he's just one of us.
Now, you know what I think you're doing now? I think you're bullshitting now.
No.
I do. I think you're...
What he really didn't realize was not that I was not vulnerable, but that I lived in denial. You know, my whole life. It's always like, whenever I felt, you know, pain or anything like this, it was like I forgot about it. I dismissed it.
For some reason, maybe it has to do with competition, you just clamp down that capacity on yourself. You carry it too far, what it winds up doing is just cutting you off from the possibility of having a really fundamental reciprocal human relationship with somebody else.
So what?
You don't care about that?
No. And especially since I knew in bodybuilding and in competition, you have to kind of bury things temporarily. The way I dealt with it always is that right now I put it aside and then I deal with it later on, whenever that is, you know.
Always on the front burner, though, was Arnold's ambition, which was on display in another sequence cut from the film. It's Arnold visiting with his idol, retired bodybuilding champ, Reg Park. Arnold was patterning his career after Park, who'd gone on to star in Hercules movies in the 60s.
I think what perhaps happened to me about 15, 20 years ago is happening to you right now.
I know, it's this incredible thing.
The parallel is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like a repetition,
yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. And I think that's why I looked up to you so much right from the beginning.
He was a kid wanting to emulate what I'd done, so it was a great compliment to me, and I took it in that sense.
Yeah, I remember in particular this one dream, because I felt like I was dreaming for 8 hours, I mean, the whole night. And it was just, it was like, you know, me being a king and standing on top of a mountain, and there was no room left for anybody else up there, okay? Just for me. I mean, the whole thing was so much like, you know, a victory dream.
The time had come. The Pumping Iron team had shot every scene they could to set up their characters at home. Now it was time to go where they were always headed, halfway around the world to the Mr. Olympia and Mr. Universe contest in Pretoria, South Africa. There'd be no more manipulated outcomes, no setting up scenes. The film crew would now be observers, not participants anymore. The competition was the real thing, and everyone would be playing to win.
It was tremendous adventure in those days. You want to go to Africa to make a movie about Arnold Schwarzenegger competing in the first multiracial contest in South Africa, then let's go to South Africa and do it. I mean, we were doing this by the seat of our pants.
A revolution in technology, much like today's digital camera revolution, allowed the crew to shoot with more mobile, handheld 16mm film cameras. With unprecedented access to the bodybuilders, the filmmakers set out to uncover the drama that was taking place behind the scenes.
I think that the wonderful part about the film is that we didn't really feel, because of our comfort and trust in the people that did the film, that the cameras were even rolling. So I think you got that real honest, down-to-earth kind of emotions and feelings.
Roger Walker, Australia.
There's a moment in the film in which you can almost see me on stage taking the shoulders of Joan Churchill, the camera woman, and just turning the camera like this onto Mike Katz at the moment he lost. And then we just followed him downstairs.
You know, as I look back on that, and I've seen it many times, I think most of us, many of us, will draw into ourselves and into our families in times of need. And I think ultimately, I just went back and wanted to know how my son was doing.
Here's a head slate.
or going in to see cats.
And I could, you know, usually I could say, look what I got, Michael, you know, and I put it around his neck, or I give him the trophy for his room. And now I'm away from him for 10 days. And I come home with nothing. You know, I'll tell you, no matter what happens to me in the sport, I always got them. And that's something great to come home to.
It was a way that I could try to gather myself together with such a disappointment. It was at that point, it was a very, very big disappointment in my life. So I kind of gathered my strength from my family, yeah.
When the Mr. Universe part of the competition was over, Waller had won. Next up, the main event, Mr. Olympia, with Arnold, Lou, and Franco all in the running. The film crews got into position.
I was aware that there was going to be a marvelous confrontation between Arnold and Louis in the pump-up room. It was setting up the most wonderful opportunity for Arnold to do everything that he is capable of doing. The psyching part of bodybuilding, which is quite famous because of that scene and some others, is something that Arnold really does.
I love it, Louis. You always keep me entertained in the serious moments.
The room we were in was only probably about 20 feet by 20 feet. I mean, it was just a very small room. And you talk about a lot of tension, a lot of heat. So you can't help being, you know, kind of on the edgy side.
The only thing that's left is Arnold's bullshit. That's why I'm up here, Arnold. See? I'm not wearing boots.
Lou, what do you think your chances are today?
I'm gonna lose, Arnold. You're the best.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just wanted to do insurance. Everything's under control here.
Beautiful.
You're going to be king a long time, Arnold. You're going to be king a long time.
Thank you.
More than 25 years later, Ferrigno recalls his feelings that night.
I came out in the prejudging. I realized that I was not going to come second. There's a chance I'm going to come third. And I'm looking at the audience, I can see my father's face. I was just, oh my God. It's like, because he was more disappointed than I was.
Third place, Lou Ferrigno.
I tell you something, what that boy of yours has done in a year, it's fantastic.
We try,
You did a keep good job. going. Okay, just Very wonderful job. Wonderful job. Wonderful job.
I knew that Arnold was going to retire.
And I would like to announce officially that I'm retiring from bodybuilding competition.
That was my chance. But you know, history is history. Being in South Africa, what I really wanted more than anything was not really being Mr. Olympia, was being out in the open and having a good time like Arnold. That's what I want more than anything. That was more impressive to me. Who wanted to be in South Africa, come second, come third, to be 10th? You were down there having fun, schmoozing with people, shaking hands. That's what I'm doing now because it's taken me many years to see that. But that was my envision. When I saw that, that's the direction I wanted to go. For me to change that, I had to work on myself.
The film was in the can, but now there was more than 100 hours of it to be cut down and crafted into a movie. Unfortunately, Butler was broke, having maxed out on his credit cards.
After I got back from Africa, I got a call every single day of the week from American Express because I'd succeeded in running up a $35,000 bill, and I had become their most important client. I was rather impressed with myself.
Out of desperation in 1976, they concocted an outlandish scheme. They put on a bodybuilding show at the prestigious Whitney Museum of American Art in New York City to try and attract potential backers.
We invited Candy Bergen to photograph Arnold. The Whitney thought we might get 300 people, and someone said, you know, there's a pretty big crowd outside.
I know, isn't it? You seen this crowd out there?
No, I haven't looked out there.
It's big.
And I went down and looked, and there were 5,000 people outside trying to get in.
Nobody's gonna go in until we get a line here.
Inside the museum, Arnold, Frank Zane, and Ed Corney were rotated on a turntable in front of the New York City art crowd.
It was very sort of high concept idea.
It was a risky scheme, and it was a long, long way from Venice Beach. Moderated by New York Times critic Vicki Goldberg, the event brought together some of the most prominent art historians in the world to watch bodybuilding.
We're talking about a subject which is fascinating and quite present before our eyes a lot of the time. That is to say, the representation of the muscular body in art.
The next bodybuilder who's coming out doesn't need an introduction to a lot of you, but he does to a lot more of you. As I said before, he's the greatest bodybuilder in the history of the sport, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And then we had this discussions about, what is bodybuilding and compared to what art was, and how did, Leonardo da Vinci and Rodin and all those guys come up with those muscles when they painted and sculpted muscular bodies.
The Whitney couldn't control the event because there were too many people there, so that instead of taking the money and putting it in a cash register, they had to throw the money into a pile on the floor.
Hey, move down, 2 lines, okay?
There was a 6-foot-high pile of $5 bills, and at the end of the day, the movie was financed, and the rest is history.
The Whitney Museum event proved to investors that the general public just might be interested in bodybuilding. Now, it was time to present Pumping Iron to the world.
Pumping up.
On January 18th, 1977, Pumping Iron premiered at New York's Plaza Theater.
Feels like flying.
Arnold and his friends were now the toast of New York City. Audiences loved the film, and critics gave it rave reviews.
Pumping up, pumping up.
But for the bodybuilders, it was a surreal experience seeing their private world revealed on the big screen.
It was comical to us to see some of the things that come out in that movie. I was a bad guy, and back then I thought that was that was all right.
When I saw it for the first time, it made me very angry because I suddenly saw how it was portrayed.
Calm him down. Help him.
I was afraid people wouldn't like me. I was afraid people were going to look down on me. Because the fact that here's a kid from Brooklyn, he's deaf, he can't speak, he looks dumb in the film. What I'm trying to say to you is at the time, I felt like a freak. But it wasn't like that. I didn't realize that within time, everyone embraced me. People come up and say, God, I love you in Pumping Iron, I love you and Arnold.
All right,
Nothing to say, I just want to eat my cake.
pumping up.
It was so incredible to see the film on the big screen. And at the end of the film, when we were sitting in the bus going back and Arnold was joking with Lou, it was almost like breathing out, saying, now we can relax.
In a way, it was naive. It was a wonderful opportunity to just hang out together, train together, and be really part of a family that continues to be close and friendly to this day.
We all stuck together and had fun doing it.
There was a certain kind of a unity there and a certain kind of a camaraderie that was unlike anything else.
And that's why when you look at it today, there's nothing else like Pumping Iron.
Here we are 25 years later celebrating it, so we must have done something right.
So how you feel today, Laurie?
I feel better.
Today, Dr. Franco Colombo is a practicing chiropractor in Los Angeles.
Narrowing of cervical 6, 7, and 8.
He also produces and stars in low-budget films that he shoots in Sardinia. To this day, he and Arnold are best friends. Mike Katz is a judge for the International Federation of Bodybuilding and owns several world gyms in Connecticut where he trains up-and-coming bodybuilders. His son, Mike Jr., and his wife recently had a baby. Mike Katz is a grandfather. Ken Waller lives in Los Angeles. He has seen Gold's, the tiny seaside gym he once managed, evolve into a worldwide enterprise.
What you doing, big guy? You show up.
His focus now is on raising his son.
Let's go talk about winning that medal, huh?
As a sales manager at Extreme Activewear, the company that prints Gold's merchandise, he now has all the t-shirts he can get his hands on. Joe Weider and his brother Ben continued promoting bodybuilding through their publishing empire and through the IFBB. What was once a subculture is now a multi-million-dollar business. Ed Corney works in the fitness industry. He's had some health problems recently, but promises that even from a wheelchair, he can still outpose anyone from the old days. George Butler went on to direct Pumping Iron 2, The Women. He recently directed 2 documentaries on the life of Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton. The films have earned rave reviews. Lou Ferrigno went on to a career in film and television, most notably starring as the Incredible Hulk. He's also a trainer to Hollywood stars and one of the most famous names in the health and fitness industry.
I'm still waiting to eat my cake. Remember that line?
Matty Ferrigno retired to Florida and says he's very proud of his son. As for Arnold Schwarzenegger, he went on to make a few bucks in the movie business.
Every time anyone sees Pumping Iron, they will come away, loving the movie, getting inspired by the movie, but at the same time they're asking themselves, wow, was all of this stuff true? Was it really, did Arnold really psych out Lou Ferrigno? Did he really not go home to his father's funeral because it was just shortly before a competition? And was he really that cold that he said, well, forget that, he's dead already. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to just focus in on my competition. Is that true? I saw him hanging there afterwards, a celebration party after the Mr. Olympia, smoking a joint. Did he really smoke a joint? And did he, in fact, inhale? Is that true? Was it true that they stole Mike Katz's T-shirt? Was really the psyching out that he was doing on Lou Ferrigno, was that true? So they're walking out with a lot of questions. And so when I go around the country and promote the movie, for instance, even the 25th anniversary, when the film started playing on HBO, on Cinemax, a lot of journalists called me and says, oh, I just saw this for the first time, and asked me about all those questions. So I think it's important to clarify that there's certain things in this movie that were true, like the competition, the outcome of the competition, the training, the severity of the training, the severity of the pain, the sacrifices that needed to be made, the amount of hours we spent in the gym, the food supplements we had to take, the food that we had to eat all the time, the pounds of meat and all those kind of things. All of that is true. But there were certain things that are not true. And that's why we never call it a documentary, we call it always a docudrama. Because certain things were created in order to make it more interesting. Because it was very clear to us that the only way we could raise the money for the movie, for our Pumping Iron, was by making it more dramatic. All the investors always said, look, the training is terrific, what they are doing is terrific, and all this, but how much can we look at this footage of them doing squats and chin-ups and sit-ups and all this? It's boring. Even though exciting to them, but it's boring to us to watch. So therefore, let's create some drama, some conflict. Let's create a villain. Let's create a hero. Let's create the guy that has the psychological power over people. Let's create the guy, the guys that fall for it and they wipe out because of it. Let's have guys pulling tricks on each other in the gym when they're training, when they're 500 pounds on the back. What can they do to each other? Those are the kind of things I like to see. This is what the investors said. So we started creating those kind of moments as we went along. And we had 100 hours of footage that we created during the whole shooting of Pumping Iron, and then edited down to around 85 or 90 minutes. And so there we could take things in such a way that makes it then appear like I was psyching him out.
I watch you.
I watch you too.
Oh, with the barbell above my head.
I adopted as time went on, and I saw that Lou Ferrigno could not be what was in the original intention, to make him the villain, the big guy that weighs 280 pounds, that trains secretly in a dark room in New York and works himself up to this machine, to this Hulk, and then comes to South Africa and beats the little Schwarzenegger, wipes him off the stage. That really didn't happen. They thought it would happen, or that it could happen. But then they found out that he's actually a very vulnerable guy, that he has a hearing problem, that he needs his father's assistance a lot of times, that he was a big guy, but he did not have the kind of a presence that would make him look like an evil guy that wants to come and destroy me. So slowly we changed the whole thing and actually made him the victim, and made me the guy that pulls the tricks on him and that wipes out the competition year after year. And the more I got into that, the more I started playing that machine. And I said to myself, how can I sell the idea that I'm a machine that has no emotions, that doesn't care about any of my competitors, not even my best friend that was living with me at the time, Franco Colombo. I could care less about him. He, as I said in the movie, is just a child. And on the day of the competition, I will become his father. I say though, that was, the reality was, I love Franco and I helped him as much. Even if it meant that he would win the competition, I would help him all the way. He was my friend, but in order to sound cold, and to sound like calculated, and like a machine, I played out this role. And I played out the role that what I would do with Lou Ferrigno. We created the things that I would psych him out. I created a scene just before the prejudging where I sat down with his father, with his mother, and with Lou Ferrigno. We all sat down. And there I was to this whole big psych-out job, telling him that I already called my mother. And she congratulated me. I told her I won 6 times Mr. Olympia. I said, she congratulated me. I said, you see, because I'm going to win later on, no matter what. And the reality of it is that, you know, I loved Lou. And there was no reason to do a psych-out job on him, because I felt 100% that I'm going to win the competition, because he was just not there at this level yet of competing. He was not ready yet to win the competition, so therefore there was no reason to psych him out. But we wanted to play it that he's really dangerous. He could wipe me out. He's huge. He's gigantic. And I have to now not only use the body, but I have to use the psychology. And I have to psych the father out, I have to psych the mother out, I have to psych Lou Ferrigno out, and I do this whole thing. And so throughout the movie, we established that kind of a relationship. So there was another thing that we did in order to really make me be different than the other guys. If you want to be a champion, you cannot have any kind of an outside negative force coming in and affect you. So therefore, I have to cut my emotions off and be kind of cold in a way. Then we wanted to sell the idea of how cold I am really, and how I have no emotions. For instance, now I took a story that I actually heard in France. One bodybuilder one time told me, 4 years before, a story about how he never went home to his father's funeral before a competition. How his father died and he just ignored it. And he says, yeah, here to stay focused. So I stole that story. And I said to myself, I have to say that story. People will be shocked. People will be writing about it when this movie comes out. And that's how you get, of course, headlines and all those kind of things. And people will write about the movie. That's how we sell the tickets. So I said to myself, that's what I have to say. So I explained that I have no emotions. If someone steals the car right out in front of my house, I would just laugh at it and buy myself a new car. You know, of course, afterwards I said to myself, I said, hey, if someone steals my car, I cry probably, because this was my jewel. That was the reality. Then I continued on with the story. And I said, as a matter of fact, my father died one year, just before competition. And my mother called me and I said, are you going to come home to the funeral? And I said to her, why? He's dead already. So I acted really totally cold, and people, it really worked. People were shocked about this. Some of them were appalled by this. And so, of course, since then, I've been getting those questions. Is this true? Is this not true? I mean, did your father really happen? The reality of it is that it never happened. My father never died before any competition. He died 3 months after a competition in 1972, and I saw him just shortly before he died. And we had a fantastic relationship. So there was none of that, of not having any emotions, not caring of my father dying. So that's the reality. So I think people, now it is important for people to know what is the reality. There is an opposite example is, for instance, with smoking the joint. I smoked the marijuana in the movie, an ant. And a lot of people ask me, says, did you really smoke a marijuana in this movie, or was it just fake? I said, no, I really smoked it. And I also inhaled, unlike some people claim.
You didn't see a blue T-shirt around? Waller had it?
The other question that people always ask me, Mike Katz was looking for his T-shirt in the movie. Did, in fact, everyone play a trick on him and steal his T-shirt or hide his T-shirt to confuse him and therefore lose the competition? The reality of it is that he did look for the T-shirt at one point just because he's misplaced it, but no one was hiding it. But after we saw this footage, we went out and shot additional footage to create a scene where a bunch of bodybuilders get together, throw the football, have fun, and then Ken Waller says, you know what I'm going to do to Mike Katz? I'm going to hide his T-shirt. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hide his bathing suit. I'm going to hide everything.
Hey, you know what I'm going to do when I get to Africa? I'm going to take Katz's shirt, I'm going to hide it. Mess his mind up a little bit.
So that football scene was actually shot way after the competition was over. And we have had all the footage already, just in order to create this scene of the Mike Katz getting his T-shirt stolen by Ken Waller, and that he messed up his mind, so he loses the competition. Pain in your muscles and aching, that's what makes actually the muscle then grow. If you can't go through this pain barrier, forget it. One of the most common questions I also get is, you know, did we take steroids? Because now, of course, drugs is such a big issue in sports. And the answer is yes. It was just in the beginning stage because bodybuilders in those days just experimented with it, but it was not illegal. It was like, we talked about it very openly. I mean, anyone that was asked, he says, you take steroids? He says, yeah, I take 3 Dianabol a day. Or someone else would say, I would take this, and that. It was not an illegal thing. Now, after it became a big problem, then our federation said, okay, bodybuilders ought not to take steroids, and there will be testing done, surprise testing done. You could be called at any given time, and within 2 days you have to do a test, so you can't get rid of the whole thing out of your system or anything like that. So that's what's going on right now. The bodybuilders are tested continuously. It's as satisfying to me as having sex with a woman and coming. People still ask me, for instance, you know, is it true? And they're still trying to find out. Is it in fact true that a pump is better than coming? Because that's what I said in the movie. And the reality, of course, is no, it has nothing to do with one and the other. It feels great to be a champion. It feels great to train. It feels great to pump up and all those things. But how can you compare one with the other? It's 2 different things. You better get both, the pump and the coming. But I mean, the reality is I made up a lot of this stuff because I felt like that's the way you get attention. You have to, I believe that the more sensationalistic that you are, and the more outrageous things that you say, the more you get quoted, the more you get in the papers, and the more the sport of bodybuilding will benefit, because the more stories we will get about the sport of bodybuilding. So that's what it really was all about. We couldn't have made this movie about Arnold Schwarzenegger, about my life or something like that, about my bodybuilding or my drive to win or all this stuff. That would have been boring and it wouldn't have done well. What made this movie successful is because we had so many bodybuilders in the movie that were very colorful. I mean, Lou Ferrigno had a specific part in this movie and it worked so well. People loved this character. Ed Corney, Franco Colombo, I mean, Ken Waller, Mike Katz, Sergeant Nubret. I mean, there were endless amount of guys that really brought the color and the dimensions to the film, and it made the relationships very interesting. Relationships that were, you know, shown in the movie. A lot of it was true, and some of it was created and made up. But the reality of it is the movie has a lot of real stuff in there. I mean, the real competition, real training, real agony, real defeat, all of those kind of things it has in there.
One and only Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Many people come up to me and say how they were inspired by Pumping Iron. First I heard it about the book, then even 10 times more when the movie came out. They were inspired to train, it changed their lives. They tell you the most unbelievable stories of what impact it had, how it created in them the will to succeed in life and to do something with themselves, if it is in bodybuilding or in other sports or in business. It is amazing the impact the movie had. So I hope that this movie, when people watch this DVD, has the same impact on them as it had on many hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of people around the world, which is they walk away and get inspired and jump into the weight room and lift the weights to find out if it's really true what I said. Is a pump better than coming? It's not, trust me.
Cinemax Final Cut presents an exclusive interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, star of the classic documentary Pumping Iron.
I remember that George Butler came to me in 1974 and said, I want to do a documentary about bodybuilding. And I said, well, it's going to be without me because I'm retired. And then he said, well, I absolutely need you to stay in competition and to compete one more year in order for us to make this documentary. So I competed one more year.
One and only Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, I'm very happy that I did because the movie became, you know, a huge hit. Pumping Iron became a classic. Well, I feel somewhat emotional about this 25th anniversary of Pumping Iron. When I saw some of the old stuff, it brought back such great memories of what a great time we had in the 70s, training for the World Championships, the camaraderie that existed at that time. But at the same time, it amazed me of what I was willing to do. Training 5 hours a day, lifting 50 tons of weights, burning 10,000 calories, and doing anything that it takes to win. The people going to see when they see Pumping Iron is basically, it's a historic kind of a classic movie because it really captures a time when bodybuilding was just coming out of the closet, so to speak, or the basement, and became a huge sport. You're going to see, you know, what it takes for people, what kind of training people are willing to go through.
For more weight. Let's go. I want to beat him.
The pounds and pounds of weights, the tons of weights they're willing to lift every day to become the most muscular man. Anyone and everyone will get something out of this film because it's a film that is really fascinating, and it is about people rather than just about a sport. It's about people.
Don't miss Arnold Schwarzenegger and the 25th anniversary special edition of Pumping Iron. Pumping Iron is back and celebrating its 25th anniversary. Cinemax caught up with Arnold Schwarzenegger and some other familiar faces at the premiere party honoring this classic documentary.
Cinemax has offered to show the movie and celebrate with us all that special day, the day when the movie came out, the year when this whole revolution started taking place.
I saw it in 1977, right when it came out. My brother took me to it. I met Arnold like 2 months later, so I have a special little spot in my heart for this film.
It's astonishing that an independent film is getting this kind of reception. I don't think it's ever happened before.
Cinemax was there to talk to the original cast.
I think it's fantastic because 25 years ago I was here, posed at the night of the premiere.
My favorite scene in the film, got to be me hanging off his arm. Yeah, that's right, just like that.
There's an original idea, especially to see how bodybuilding makes people stay young. As you see, the way I look 25 years later, I look even younger.
We also spoke with some of bodybuilding's current title holders.
I think bodybuilding has come a long way, just like everything else.
When was the first time you saw Pumping Iron?
I was 16 years old. I just joined the gym. I trained for 3 months. The gym owner gave me a tape. Here, you might want to watch it.
The favorite part of the movie are my friends that are in it. It's like extraordinary. Each one of the guys has done such a great job after that and has at the same time promoted the sport.
Don't miss Pumping Iron 25th Anniversary Special Edition.